This is TWiT.
So Harry McCracken, good article in Fast Company, what we can expect and not expect from WWDC. He says, I don't know if I agree with this, without a doubt, the star of WWDC will be iOS 13. iOS 13. Maybe from Apple's point of view, iOS certainly is their most important software.
The iPhone is the most popular, and people care about it. And my guess is that dark mode is going to be as popular as an emoji bomb. And we know how popular people just love the idea of dark mode, Leo. They could just say dark mode, send everybody home, and people think it's a rousing success.
Well, it's true. It's easier on the eyes, I think. Once you use dark mode for a while and you go back to light mode, it's like, wow, that hurts.
Anything you don't have that you want that desperately, and they finally give it to you, is like...
Renee, when you do your review of iOS 13, I want it to be 2 words.
Dark mode.
Dark mode.
Mic drop.
Nothing else.
I was joking with Lori because like my favorite review I ever did was in 2011. I reviewed the iPod Touch, and the entire review was this year it comes in white.
Your review this year will be even shorter, by the way. Yeah.
This year it has an A10 and up to 256 gigabytes. But like I say, this year it has dark mode. But I have a feeling Apple's going to add a couple other new features.
I am excited about the potential of making the beautiful iPad Touch something more than just a giant iPhone, and that would require some specific features in iOS 13. We've heard they're coming, including multi-window displays, stackable windows, multitasking, 3-finger gestures,
mouse support.
Support.
But let's find out if that's accessibility only, or whether that's accessibility, but clearly a precursor to getting developers used to incorporating an external pointing device, so that in a couple of years, when they figure out how to adapt the interface so that it makes sense for all apps, they'll do that.
My understanding is that it's just like you flip the switch in accessibility and it just works. And it's weird that they would put it under accessibility. Maybe that's just because they're religiously allergic to admitting you need a mouse on iOS. But my understanding is you flip that switch and then you can use the pointer. So we'll see how that goes.
See, I think Apple is so dogmatically behind touch that they don't want to admit people would want to use a trackpad or a mouse. So
they make a smart keyboard. I mean, they've already broken that wall,
And also, I was, it sounds weird, but I was actually using a mouse with my Android phone last night for reasons that would make sense if you were seeing what I was doing and why I wanted it. Why at some point I decided I'm sick of reaching up to touch the screen. And I was reminded of how non-intrusive, when you have a really well-designed touch interface, which iOS definitely is, if all you do is you just throw a mouse pointer on there, and you just simply allow people to make those clicks and those drags by having an external device, that's enough. That really, really works. Maybe the way that Apple thinks is that they couldn't do that unless they really baked external pointing devices into the user interface. But given that the only thing that a mouse cannot possibly work with is 3D touch, and that's either on its way out or it's still very, very optional, I don't see that it would be a huge hindrance.
Even a Magic Mouse can do that.
You know how Apple is though. Like they're not gonna allow something like that across the board until they're sure that it has like a really great user experience. And even if it has just like the slight awkwardness, they're not gonna release that. They're gonna work on it and perfect it. They're going to bake it into the system better, because if you just give a mobile device pointer capabilities, you're not the best, and Apple wants to be the best at this stuff. And that's why they kind of hold off until everybody else does it and then they perfect it. That's their MO, So in this case, like making it accessible, or making it an accessibility feature, allows them to give you that option without claiming that they've somehow perfected using a mouse on a mobile device. It's kind of like giving you what you want while not, making a less awesome user experience. It's your choice if you don't want that user experience to be awesome,
I might be
That's a great observation.
I might be a little weird because, and maybe it's because I use Emacs, but when I'm on the keyboard, I just want to be on the keyboard. And I noticed that I put this bridge keyboard on the iPad, and I use touch much less. I'll even use keyboard shortcuts to go home or go into search. I think that's correct, that if your fingers are on the keys, you want to stay on the keys as much as possible. What you don't want is switching modes all the time.
Yeah.
Well, one of the hindrances is that if you're using an external device, you can actually see the tip of the pointer as you aim it towards the thing you want to click on. Whereas when you have your finger always gets in its own way. So for some things, it's like
for like drawing and stuff. You're right. You'd want to. Yeah.
Not only that, but like there's some parts of a user interface where right now mobile apps are complicated. Some mobile apps are so productivity useful that they really can't streamline the interface all the way down. They do have to have a hamburger menu or something where there's kind of more of a desktop paradigm, and it becomes more difficult to aim your fingers to navigate this interface. But like I think that Laurie had a really great point there.
That feels like a failure, though. If you, and I agree with you, you have to, but that seems like a failure. You should be able to touch.
Not a failure. Sometimes sometimes all designers chase the perfect solution for so long that they deny people a good solution. And I think that Laurie's suggestion that Apple will not have to necessarily support and defend and build out a whole pointer-based interface if all just people like she and me and Renee and you are pointing, hey, by the way, I started using a mouse with my iPad and it's just totally changed my life. They can let us bear the burden of users saying, but that doesn't really work well with this thing. Well, I didn't say it would work with everything. Yeah, but you told us. I'm sorry.
We didn't say it worked well. We just
promised.
Yeah, it's the thing. Like people want touchscreens on their Mac and they want trackpads on their iOS devices, and they sound mutually inconsistent. But it's exactly what you said, Leo. You just don't want to change context. So if your hands are up, you want to touch things, and if your hands are down, you want to move things, and you want to have both options. And if you don't, it always feels like something's broken.
Yeah. I just feel like the device should tell you what you're using, and it's why really, honestly, the iPad could be a little confusing if it has a keyboard and a mouse. It really should be a touch-only device, I feel like, but maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know.
I see what you're saying, though.
Yeah, it's just confusing because you have both modalities.
Yeah, and your brain is thinking two different things. Like especially with the Bridge, I know exactly what you're talking. I actually look for a trackpad when I'm using the Bridge keyboard because there's that space down there that makes it so familiar to a laptop. So. And then my brain also sort of resents me using that keyboard when I have to reach up and touch the screen.
Yes.
Like my brain is like, it has to switch modes to touch if I'm using any kind of keyboard. And in the reverse, if I've been using an iPad a lot and like got used to touching the screen, if I switch back to my MacBook Pro, I'll reach up to touch the screen for things sometimes. Like our brains don't want to do both. Our brains only want to do touch, or they want to do the keyboard and mouse or trackpad mechanics.